here.
Oh, here we go. Heck yeah. 20 years later, Ground Zero. That's the new building right there. Well, it's called the Freedom Building, but it's kind of like the new trade tower. But Ground Zero is the Tooth Memorial, or the old trade tower, Sam. Less than half an hour, it's gonna be the moment when the first plane hit the North Tower. I think it was 8:43, if I remember top of my head. Yeah, I see all the. See that there's one there. There's a Ground Zero right there, and there's another one right there. All the trees right there.
Oculus, that's a transportation hub, a retail hub. The museum.
Well, yeah.
We can't urge people.
Could be a bus station hub or something like that. Sometimes what it is.
Be ready.
Transit center.
It is a tough day. It's an emotional day. On a good day, but the 9/11 Museum, first of all, needs your help. It needs visitor dollars to survive and to curate all the many, many exhibits they have. But it, better than anything, tells the story of what happened here, tells the story of the lives lost here, and I keep
over 2,000.
This is Lower Manhattan, even though it is early on a Saturday morning, Nicole. I just can't remember this kind of stillness.
You can hear a pin drop, and it is a remarkable, I don't know if it's a symptom of the security around here or a combination of that with what this day means, not just to this city, but to this neighborhood.
Yeah, security is tight, and that's a visual you see throughout the crowd. Just coming to where our live camera location was, everyone carrying a memento. It's safe to say.
Yeah, the memorial part with Ground Zero. That's where one of the trade towers stood. There's another fountain like that.
A personal story, and that personal story started with the loss, just like Mary Fetchett, the morning of September 11th. You see there the concept of the reflecting pools. Among our correspondents who covered that day, who covered the aftermath years on after September 11th. Correspondent Rahima Ellis, who is with us again today. Rahima, I'm curious as to your perspective from where you are.
Brian, I'm struck by what you mentioned about the tower behind me. You were right, it took years. It was 14 years before this One World Trade Center, this stunning sparkling tower behind me was
That's
built,
the one.
and it didn't open until 2015. And
it took over 10 years for the making to even put that up.
Solemn tradition. Just moments ago, I was looking at pictures of people standing by the reflecting pool, and the tears were flowing. They were wiping tears from their eyes, the tears flowing like the water in the pool, as they begin to undertake or enact something that they've been doing now since 9/11, and that is remembering those lost with a traditional reading of nearly 3,000 names of people who were killed that day. It's striking to remember something also.
343 firefighters.
One company that lost the largest
2,606 people from the trade towers.
It was 658 people who died and worked with the Cantor Fitzgerald Company. But something beautiful has come out of it. 60 kids of those who died are now.
And the guy that runs that company has dedicated his resources to paying for the survivors of 9/11.
He is the CEO of the company, and he mourns those friends and colleagues he lost and is remembering them, but he is also grieving because his brother was among them.
Yeah, that's right.
Was killed. Take a listen.
His sister came out of the towers alive, but his brother died.
The best way to show someone who died that you love them is to love the people that they loved. And so you go out and you take care of their kid, right? I'm going to have a lot of friends up there, and that's the best thing. So we've got great young people. They love the firm. They care about the firm in a way that regular employees just could never, and they're committed to us, and we're committed to them. So it's amazing.
And Howard survived that day because he talks about he was on his way to work, but he was going late. And his fate would have it is because he was dropping off his son at school. And that's the reason that he survived when so many others, including his brother, died. And what he says now is, we have to remember that life is short, and it's so important to get on with your lives. And he says that giving back is what helps him.
I had a friend that lived in Brooklyn at the time. She was only 11 when the 9/11 happened. Her father was working for a company, a firm, and 4 of his co-workers were in the trade tower when it went down.
It became well known in real time that was the only reason Howard Lutnick survived, and thanks to his survival, he has spent 20 years making good on that
promise.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Rahema Ellis in Lower Manhattan. With
Not only
us.
that, what he does every
As
9/11, he takes the
we believe
revenue for his
that right
company and
now,
donates it to the
the
survivors
president
and people in
is
9/11.
Certainly out of camera
He included
range,
the
but
museum.
behind closed doors with families. So much has been said and written and shown about his empathy, and you got to see this at the White House level, as you mentioned, presidential level up close. What do you say?
I remember when President Bush came up here, not the Thursday where he grabbed the bullhorn and said, "I hear you," and pretty soon
And none of that. He said, "We all hear you. These people knock these walls down. Will hear from us." That was so great.
With families who I think by that point knew that it was a recovery effort, not a rescue effort at Ground Zero. And he met Arlene Howard, who gave him the badge of her son. He carried it with him through his entire presidency. I believe during his convention speech or one of his big
You know what?
addresses, he asked
Remember too,
where
another
the
George
courage
Bush
comes
moment
from
too
to
was
carry
the
on.
was
I
the
mean,
first pitch
I
of a
think
Game
every
3 at the old
president
Yankee
since
Stadium in the World
9/11
Series.
has been so
Just
humbled
went
and
in there.
moved
The
by
ghost of
these
Yankees
families,
past.
by
Lou
the
Gehrig, Mickey
survivors,
Mantle,
by
Babe Ruth.
these
Got it in
rituals
there.
Of grief, of reading all the names, by the act of running into
And
towers.
Bush was acting like it's no big deal. He said, "I'm not afraid of you guys, terrorists. Fuck you." And he did a thumbs up.
Pennsylvania and saying, "Let's roll." I think every president has been shaken and moved and fortified by those stories.
We should probably mention for context the immediate past president issued a video today that is in part critical of the situation in Afghanistan.
829 there.
The immediate past president is planning on being a guest announcer for a prize fight tonight.
Well, that is what it is. I think that this is a day that is so above all of the, sort of stench of our politics that
it should be.
It should be. His choices are his choices. I hope that the people that are going to see him have a good night.
Let's bring in our next guest. Jim McCarthy, 9/11 first responder, president of the FDNY Uniformed Fire Officers Association. He was off duty on 9/11, drove into Manhattan with a fellow firefighter when he heard of the attacks. He arrived at Ground Zero shortly after the towers had fallen. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
One thing that a whole lot of civilians don't understand, if firefighters across the country walk around with the number 343 in their head because that was the death toll that day on the FDNY. But what was less clear to civilians, this was a decapitation of the management of the greatest fire department in the world. All the white helmets, all of the chiefs, battalion chiefs, responded. Many of them were in the lobbies of those towers doing their jobs. Chief Pfeiffer famously was first on the scene as a battalion chief, first guy to call in and say, make this 3 alarms. I think it went to 14. There's nothing higher in the city of New York.
Oh, it went to 3 alarms. Was not even 5 minutes after the first plane went to the tower.
That had to happen to fortify the ranks, to fortify management.
Well, among the 343 firefighters that were killed that day were 89 officers, from the chief of department to deputy commissioners. And they did lose a lot of the command, but the small units, the captains and lieutenants and the firefighters took over, as they often do, and do the most of the work on the ground. So we work very well with our individual companies. So they took over and did what they had to do, because it was obvious from what our experience with collapses that we have to do searches, and that's what the individual companies do.
In the fire service, certainly in the extended FDNY family, There were legendary names lost that day. Oriole Palmer comes to mind. Terry Hatton comes to mind. Where were you on the job back then? Where were you assigned? What was your job?
I was assigned to 55 truck in the Bronx by Yankee Stadium, but I was home that morning, and my brother Dennis lived in Florida, called me and said that a plane had hit the World Trade Center, and we turned the TV on and watched it, and I just thought that the tragic accident happened because it was so clear. And then we saw the second plane hit while we were watching the news, and I told him that we're under attack, so I had to hang up and go into work. So as you said, I called 3 friends that are also FDNY members: Alex Streichwein, Jimmy Bruno, and Jeremy Castle. And we got together in town and got in one car and drove down here because we thought it was going to be difficult taking individual cars. Jeremy Castle's uncle is Jay Jonas, the captain of 6 Truck, who we found, is in the stairwell with rescuers during the collapse, and he survived. We stopped by to see his wife to give her assurances that we were coming down to help him and to be part of the effort. And then we raced down to New York City and came into the firehouse in the Bronx.
I know Nicole has some questions. I'm just curious, what were those initial, fog of war, I'm sure, what were those initial hours and days like for you here?
Well, I don't think we thought it was going to collapse. And then when it did, you thought about the tragic loss of life and the number of people that were here in the towers and our brothers and sisters that were working down here at the Trade Center, and you knew that there was a lot of people killed, and a large number of those people are going to be our brothers and sisters in the fire department. And then we come to find out later that the number that we lost, but coming down here and traveling to the city and then coming down to this site, you just think about trying to find somebody, hopefully a survivor, and then after that you want to find the remains of any of the people so they can bring them home to their families.
What's it like today? How often a day or a week, or how often do you think about that day?
The fire department, especially the FDNY, we have a tradition where we put brass plaques on the walls at every firehouse. So every line of duty death has their name, the location of the box they were killed, and the date. And they put those on the wall. We have a ceremony to bless them and put them on our walls in each firehouse. Everybody that gets assigned to that firehouse has to research those people, get their names, get their story, and then report back to the senior guys and people in the unit. But we all know.
Look at that, the former president. There's Bill Clinton. There's Obama right there. I'm sure there's
every day we think
Bush is there as well.
That were killed.
Former presidents there.
From the beginning of the fire department to today. So, never forget is not a slogan for us or a bumper sticker. It's a lifestyle. This is what we do.
Just want to interrupt you.
It's not an afterthought. It's the real thing.
For those watching, we have 3 American presidents within a few feet of each other. They just entered the grounds. We saw the Bidens, we saw the Obamas, we saw the Clintons. President Clinton is the closest to the camera now as they greet people.
Shop Bush is not there.
Again, the occasional siren connected with the various motorcades down here, but the absolute striking silence as we mark this day coming up on 8:36 a.m. All of the moments that tick by now have a significance. The timestamps on everyone's memory having to do with gruesome things like impact and
the first plane hit, and the second one.
And collapse.
When they collapsed, when the Pentagon got hit. Well, Flight 93 went down.
Different states. We're talking with Jim McCarthy, FDNY. Not far from here, we can just about see it from here, is the 10 house, Ladder 10, Engine 10, which was the most heavily impacted in more ways than one, closest firehouse to this tragedy. I walked by last night. A lot of their members were enjoying a beverage next door at O'Hara's. A lot
Bidens,
of their members
Obamas,
who
and Clintons.
lived long enough
By the
to
memorial.
comb gray hair were greeting each other. Some clearly hadn't seen each other in years. I just took in the scene. It's a heavy atmosphere. Firefighters do remembrance well, but it's a heavy atmosphere.
Unfortunately, we have extensive experience with line of duty deaths in the FDNY and the fire departments all over the country. So it builds a camaraderie with the members.